Chapter 576. 9 Origin Marks. What a terrifying improvement! It only took him a little while for his body to become much stronger than before. Finally, it stopped. His body had reached its limit, so it was impossible for him to improve any more. Unless he made a breakthrough in realm, his body would no longer be able to be enhanced. This is my body's limit. He clenched his right hand and felt how powerful he was. Now that his body had reached the limit of Venerable Master, a great change had happened. What? Jian Wushuang was astounded. He looked at his own arms in terror. He originally had 8 World Origin marks and Slaughter Origin marks on his arms, but right now a stream of World Origin and Slaughter Origin was gathering on his arms. Jian Wushuang was familiar with what was happening. Origin mark, the 9th Origin mark. Is it finally happening? A gush of delight flashed in his eyes. He had comprehended the origin to a superior level and had even achieved the Slaughter Dao, but he only had 8 origin marks and had been stuck at the level of Venerable Master, which did not make sense. I finally understand why I had not made a breakthrough. It's because my body had not reached its limit. Jian Wushuang cultivated the heavenly creation skill. When he was at the level of Venerable Master, the biggest difference between him and normal warriors was his body. His powerful body had slowly been enhancing. The reason he could not bypass his bottleneck was that his body had not reached its limit. Now, aided by the enhanced magic thunderbolt, his body had reached its limit, so he naturally made a breakthrough. A 9th origin mark condensed on each arm. 9 origin marks. Both sets of origin marks, World Origin and Slaughter Origin, amounted to 9. In that case, I can reach flying to the 9th heaven. Jian Wushuang was ecstatic about it. The moment the 9th origin marks condensed, he felt his bottleneck starting to shake. He had waited for it for so long. Boom! He began to make a breakthrough. It went smoothly. As soon as he made the attempt, his bottleneck easily began to collapse and a mighty spiritual power surged through him as a terrifying aura suddenly radiated from his body. The gush of terrifying aura was the result of reaching the level of flying to the 9th heaven. At some point, the towering golden sword Soul Phantom had appeared behind his back. The instant Jian Wushuang made his breakthrough, the golden sword Soul Phantom size soared as well. In an instant, the sky had darkened. It was a sunny day. The holy place had become empty because many experts had headed for the North Camp. At that moment, a terrifying aura, like the awakening of a calamity beast that had slept for eons, surged out from the bottom of the Earth Core Palace. Boom! The whole area began to shake. The clouds began to dissipate and the wind was becoming turbulent as a terrifying storm formed in the sky. Then, a towering golden phantom rose from the ground as a supreme sword essence suddenly erupted, accompanied by a terrifying aura that seemed to be able to shake the world. Both the stream of sword essence and aura were too overwhelming. Some of the divine generals who remained in the holy place sensed it and raised their heads in terror. In the North Camp, numerous human experts and demonic beasts were keeping their eyes on each other. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor sat on his throne while tapping on the armrest. Temple Master Black Spirit, time is running out, Crystal-armored Monster Emperor said in a low voice. Temple Master Black Spirit glanced at him but gave no response. At this moment, everyone in the area sensed a terrifying sword essence and aura emanating from afar. What? All of them were dumbstruck. They knew the sword essence and aura were far from them, but they still felt it. What happened? What on earth is releasing this sword essence and aura? The holy place. Both of them are coming from the holy place. A loud voice suddenly rang out among the camp. What? It caused a commotion among the human camp. The holy place was quite distant from the North Camp. However, they could feel the sword essence and aura from the holy place even though they were in the North Camp. Was this a joke? This is? The human temple masters were stunned. They had received news that something was happening at the holy place. Now this sword essence and aura was erupting from the bottom of the Earth Core Palace. Even Crystal-armored Monster Emperor could not help but stand up and looked in the direction of the holy place. He was not clear about what happened, but he had a grim sense of foreboding. It's coming from the bottom of the Earth Core Palace. There is only one person remaining in the Earth Core Palace that might be able to cause this. Temple Master Black Spirit wore a grim expression while looking in the direction of the holy place. Jian Wushuang. It even shook the demonic beasts in the monster territory. There was a peaceful valley deep in the monster territory. Only a huge black castle was built there. Inside the dark palace, a grey-robed middle-aged man suddenly raised his head. Flying to the 9th heaven. Little boy, you've reached it faster than I expected, he said with a faint smile on his face. Since that's the case, it's time to meet him. Chapter 577. Flying to the 9th heaven. Disciple. The grey-robed middle-aged man shouted toward the outside. A figure who had been cultivating at the other end of the castle dashed out like a flowing light and immediately appeared in front of the grey-robed man. This young man had an arrogant look on his face and a blood-red saber on his back. Master, the young man responded respectfully. Go pick up this little guy, the grey-robed man ordered. Okay, the young man replied with a flicker of delight in his eyes. He quickly set out, accompanied by dozens of colossal figures. Those colossal figures were giant bone dragons. On the 5th floor of the Earth Core Palace, Jian Wushuang was feeling really good. His body, from his skin, muscles, blood, bones, and organs, to each and every cell, began to metamorphosis. This metamorphosis was like a worm changing into a butterfly. The giant golden sword Soul Phantom behind him soared crazily, going from 240 feet to 330 feet. However, it seemed that the golden sword Soul Phantom had finally reached its limit. This feeling is really amazing. Jian Wushuang closed his eyes with a smile while he sensed the changes that had taken place. It took him a long period of time to finish the metamorphosis. His terrifying aura finally dissipated as the golden sword Soul Phantom slowly disappeared. Calm was restored to the area. Jian Wushuang suddenly opened his eyes as a streak of light flashed in them. Flying to the 9th heaven, I made it. Finally, I made a breakthrough. Jian Wushuang tingled with unprecedented excitement. He was over the moon. He had been stuck in the Saint Realm for such a long period of time. When traveling through the Divine Land and the Monster Continent, his strength had been continually improving, to the point where he could even match up to a superior emperor, but he was still in the Saint Realm. There was a huge gap between his realm and his real strength. Even Jian Wushuang himself felt it was strange. Now, he had finally bypassed the bottleneck. He had made it to the Cloud Realm and his 9 origin marks had changed into 9 clouds. He was a 9 cloud realm expert now. His heavenly creation skill truly was heaven-defying at each level. Flying to the 9th heaven was on the same level as the Cloud Realm, but it should be far more extraordinary. Jian Wushuang quickly understood what was so extraordinary about it. Superb, absolutely superb. Jian Wushuang widened his eyes. He could sense that flying to the 9th heaven was different from the preceding realms. If someone reached flying to the 9th heaven, he would be able to display the special parts of the previous levels to their greatest extent. Ordinary warriors followed this cultivating path. 7 steps of the spirit path, spiritual sea realm, primordial gold core realm, yin-yang void realm, and divine transcendence. However, Jian Wushuang had cultivated the heavenly creation skill, so he followed a different path. 9 heavens of the divine path, ultimate spiritual sea, supreme gold core realm, yin and yang breaking, and venerable master. 9 heavens of the divine path provided him with a more powerful martial arts foundation than ordinary warriors. As for the ultimate spiritual sea, it gave him more spiritual power. With supreme gold core, his outburst of spiritual power was far superior to ordinary warriors at the same level. Yin-yang breaking provided him with a slaughter doppelganger. As a venerable master, he had a supreme body. At every stage, Jian Wushuang was more powerful than ordinary warriors at the same level. And now, flying to the 9th heaven was a perfect combination of the special powers at each of the previous stages. His martial arts foundation, the amount of spiritual power, the outburst of spiritual power, and his body, all became perfect. As for that doppelganger, he used his mind, causing his slaughter doppelganger to instantly appear by his side. At this point, he realized that his doppelganger had also changed and become a duplicate of his original body. 2 original bodies were able to work separately and combine into one. Most importantly, They were connected to each other. No matter which one died, one original body was able to remake the other. Even his sword soul reached a superb level. Incredible. It's really incredible. Flying to the ninth heaven didn't give me any other special abilities, but this perfect combination will be more helpful to me. He clenched his hands, but he could not hold back his surprise and delight. At that moment, the broken finger's arrogant voice rang out again. Little boy, I'm God Hong. Remember my name and visit me when you come to my world. The voice became faint and eventually disappeared. God Hong. Jian Wushuang remembered this name and replied with gratitude, "Thanks for your help. If I have an opportunity to meet you, I'll repay you for this favor." The broken finger gave no response. Jian Wushuang breathed a sigh of relief, calmed himself down, and then slowly stood up. This trip to the 5th floor of the Earth Core Palace was a very fortunate occurrence. I really gained a lot, Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile. He had inherited the immortality secret skill, improved his body to its limit with enhanced magic thunderbolt, and made a breakthrough to the realm of flying to the ninth heaven. It was very fortunate indeed. Without this opportunity, he did not know when he would have made a breakthrough. I'm satisfied, so I should leave now. Jian Wushuang left. After he walked out of Earth Core Palace, Jian Wushuang took out several tokens. What's wrong? Why did so many people send me messages? Jian Wushuang wondered. I've only been here for 2 days. Is it really so long that they would need to look for me? Jian Wushuang frowned and began to check those tokens. Chapter 578. Jian Wushuang's Reply. Jian Wushuang received lots of messages from Qing Hui and Emperor Fengxiao, who both had a close relationship with him, as well as Emperor Daofeng and Temple Master Pure Moon. However, most of the messages came from Temple Master Black Spirit. Jian Wushuang immediately understood the situation after reading the messages. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor, one of the 3 Monster Emperors, led a monster army here to steal my compass? Jian Wushuang was surprised. He knew the compass was of extraordinary value, but he did not expect it to be so valuable that even Crystal-armored Monster Emperor would be fanatical about it and want to obtain it even at the price of starting a war with the entire human population. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor and the experts of the entire human camp are waiting for my reply. Gee, I'm so honored. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and smiled. He then headed directly towards the North Camp. In the North Camp, the human camp and the demonic beasts stood facing each other. Suddenly, a man slowly appeared on the horizon. Jian Wushuang, who wore a black robe and carried a long sword on his back, seemed to be slowly moving in their direction. Slow as he seemed to be, each step of his was hundreds of meters wide. Though he had been far away, he arrived in front of everyone in the blink of an eye. Is he coming? The crowd of experts from human camp looked toward him. They immediately realized something. The temple masters especially looked at him with a little surprise. Jian Wushuang seemed to be completely different from before. That boy. Temple Master Iceberg observed Jian Wushuang, with a hint of killing intent flashing in his eyes. Jian Wushuang, with a confident smile on his face, appeared beside Temple Master Black Spirit a moment later. Temple Master Black Spirit, Jian Wushuang greeted her with a hint of humility. Temple Master Black Spirit glanced at Jian Wushuang as her eyes slightly narrowed. Then she asked, "Did you have a breakthrough?" Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded. Since he made a breakthrough, his spiritual power naturally changed, so Temple Master Black Spirit sensed it. Were you the cause of the confusion at the holy place just now? Temple Master Black Spirit asked again. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded again. Good. Temple Master Black Spirit sighed in praise and said, "I've explained the situation in the message. It's up to you now. I have to remind you that the compass is extremely valuable. You can give it to Crystal-armored Monster Emperor if you like. If you don't want to, no one will force you." I understand. Thank you, Temple Master Black Spirit, Jian Wushuang said. Jian Wushuang then turned to Crystal-armored Monster Emperor, who was sitting on his throne. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor. Jian Wushuang stared at Crystal-armored Monster Emperor. As one of the 3 Monster Emperors, Crystal-armored Monster Emperor almost looked like a human being except for the two horns on both sides of his forehead. Are you Sword Emperor? Crystal-armored Monster Emperor sat there with his hand on the armrest. He turned to Jian Wushuang with a dignified look and asked in a deep voice, Emperor Golden Snake stole that compass from me. Is it in your hands now? Yes, it is. Jian Wushuang nodded to admit it and even took the compass out with a wave of his hand. The compass was as large as a palm, but it was also rusty and ordinary at first glance. Nevertheless, it aroused a fanatical look in the eyes of Crystal-armored Monster Emperor as well as Temple Master Iceberg. This compass really wasn't treasure, but it was a very important token. Only by virtue of this compass could they get the ancient world token. Give me the compass and I guarantee you that you and the human territory will remain safe and sound, Crystal-armored Monster Emperor said eagerly. What if I refuse? Jian Wushuang replied casually. If you refuse? Then you'll die and the human territory will be at war. I hope you won't make such a stupid decision, Crystal-armored Monster Emperor lowered his voice. The experts of human camp listened seriously. Naturally, they all hoped that Jian Wushuang would make the sacrifice and hand over the compass to Crystal-armored Monster Emperor so as to avoid a war. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor, I can give you this compass, but I have a condition, Jian Wushuang said. Just say it out. As long as I can do it, I won't refuse, Crystal-armored Monster Emperor said. He could do anything to get the compass. A condition or two meant nothing to him. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor had expected that Jian Wushuang would ask for some treasures or monster cores. Nevertheless, Jian Wushuang said casually, fight me. If you win, the compass is yours. The whole area became quiet. Everyone present, including those gatekeepers, was stunned. The Temple Masters, the Divine Emperors, and the thousands of Divine Generals in human camp were completely stunned. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor was also astonished. Even Temple Master Black Spirit turned to Jian Wushuang in surprise. No one had guessed that Jian Wushuang would ask to have a battle with Crystal-armored Monster Emperor. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor, as one of the three Monster Emperors, was far stronger than the Monster Kings. Among the 33 Temple Masters in the human camp, only Temple Master Black Spirit was able to compete with him by virtue of some special means. All the other Temple Masters were scared of him. For example, Temple Master Iceberg knew very well that he was no match for Crystal-armored Monster Emperor even though he was ranked in the top 3 in the Monster Exterminating League. Now, Jian Wushuang was declaring that he wanted to battle with Crystal-armored Monster Emperor who was a horrifying existence in the eyes of the Temple Masters. Has he gone crazy? How dare he battle with Crystal-armored Monster Emperor? He's so presumptuous. The Temple Masters yelled in shock. They could see that Jian Wushuang had broken through from the Saint Realm to the Cloud Realm and improved a lot. But so what? Strong as he was, he could at most compete with ordinary Temple Masters. As a Cloud Realm expert, Jian Wushuang would already be regarded as a monster for doing that. Was he really able to completely defy the heavens and compete with Crystal-armored Monster Emperor? That was unrealistic. It was natural for the Temple Masters to think like that. Under normal circumstances, it was not realistic for a Cloud Realm expert to compete with top experts like Crystal-armored Monster Emperor. Nevertheless, the heavenly creation skill which Jian Wushuang had cultivated was an inverse cultivation method. Chapter 579. I'll give you 3 moves. I have reached the 9 Cloud Realm, so my strength has improved to an unbelievable level. However, it's hard to determine the exact level my power has reached. As Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, he could tell that his strength was much greater than before. However, he was not clear about how much more powerful he was. Hence, what he needed most was to find a strong opponent to battle with so that he could judge how strong he was now. Ordinary human Temple Masters or Monster Kings were not strong enough for this. However, Crystal-armored Monster Emperor, who was currently standing in front of Jian Wushuang, was strong enough to test his strength, so he would not waste this chance. Sword Emperor. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor said, "You just said you would give me the compass if I can defeat you." Right. Jian Wushuang nodded. Ha ha. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor laughed willfully. Then, with fire burning in his eyes, he said, You humans are getting more and more arrogant. How dare you fight with me with strength that is only in the cloud realm? Since you are determined though, I'll do as you wish. Sword Emperor. Go ahead. I'm right here. I'll even give you 3 moves so that you can't say I'm bullying you. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor stood in the air with his hands behind his back, looking down at Jian Wushuang from above. In his mind, Jian Wushuang's level of strength was not worth mentioning. That was true. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor was quite famous, and he was capable of looking down on the human temple masters, even the experts at the level of Iceberg Temple Master Iceberg, let alone someone like Jian Wushuang who had only reached the cloud realm. You'll give me 3 moves? Jian Wushuang asked with a strange expression on his face. Very well then, be careful. Jian Wushuang reminded his opponent out of goodwill as the heart-killing sword appeared in his hand. As a mighty power surged forth, the heart-killing sword started to tremble slightly with excitement. Because of how powerful the heart-killing sword was, he was incapable of displaying its full power before he broke through to the 9-cloud realm. But now things were different. Now, he could finally use the full power of the sword. While holding the sword in his hand, Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and began to exude an aura of slaughter. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor, you are one of 3 emperors from the monster population. I will use you to test my own strength. Jian Wushuang muttered before slowly waving his long sword. At this point, a 110-meter-tall golden sword Soul Phantom suddenly appeared behind him. The golden sword Soul Phantom radiated a supreme sword essence as it imitated Jian Wushuang and waved its golden long sword as well. At this point, the sword thrust forward. It was a casual attack that didn't even seem to possess any sword skill. But, afterwards, swoosh. The space between them was split and a huge sword shadow appeared. The huge sword shadow seemed as if it had the power to destroy anything, and it drew the attention of everyone in the area as soon as it appeared. Most of the surrounding human experts and the countless demonic beasts all cast their eyes towards this move. They could feel an incredible power from this move. The warriors in the cloud realm were unable to display this level of strength, and even ordinary temple masters wouldn't possess this much power. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor, who was standing in front of Jian Wushuang, had thought poorly of him in the beginning, but he knitted his eyebrows when he felt the power that was being released from this humongous sword shadow. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor quickly thrust his right palm out like a shot before the sword shadow managed to strike him. Bang! In that instant, the whole area trembled. The 2 terrifying powers slammed into each other. What? Crystal-armored Monster Emperor was completely surprised because he was forced to retreat in a disorderly manner. He retreated backwards for over 300 meters, almost falling into the horde of demonic beasts, while being chased by the huge sword shadow that Jian Wushuang released. An instant later, the power that still remained exploded. A torrent of sword shadows filled the sky and swept out in all directions, forming many dazzling sword lights. Those sword lights carried such a terrifying amount of power that the surrounding demonic beasts couldn't help being overwhelmed and stricken with a sense of fear. Swoosh! The terrifying sword lights skimmed through the demonic beasts, cutting off their heads and other parts of their bodies as easily as cutting wheat. Even the rank 7 or rank 8 monsters were easily killed by the sword lights without any sign of a struggle. Some of the rank 9 monsters withstood the explosion of sword lights, but most of them had been heavily mauled. After a short period of time had passed, the power emitted by the sword lights finally vanished, but the result had been catastrophic for the demonic beasts. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor still had a magnificent aura. Even though he had been forced backwards by Jian Wushuang, he was still uninjured. However, at this moment, he glanced around him with a gloomy look on his face. The field was littered with corpses. There had to be hundreds of demonic beasts lying there. Among them were rank 7 and rank 8 monsters who had died in the aftermath of the ruthless Sword Shadow's explosion. It happened in an instant, but the aftermath killed hundreds of demonic beasts who were at least rank 4 and had reached the cloud realm. What a terrifying attack! This move had come from Jian Wushuang, who Crystal-armored Monster Emperor had been looking down on. However, it had only been a casual and random attack, without using any sword skill. It was obvious that he had not used his full strength. Silence! The whole area had become silent at this moment. Even most of the human experts who had witnessed what happened just now were completely stupefied. This. Jian Wushuang did this. It was only a casual wave of his sword, yet the aftermath swept out and directly extinguished hundreds of demonic beasts. What is his true level of strength? Did you see? Even crystal-armored Monster Emperor was forced to step back hundreds of meters when he confronted this move. What a terrible move! Just by looking at the level of power, that move has surpassed most of the Temple Masters in our Monster Exterminating League, let alone the fact that it was only a casual attack by Jian Wushuang. Everyone was filled with shock and bewilderment. Everyone was frightened by the strength he had just displayed. In the beginning, they thought Jian Wushuang was crazy when he said he would fight with crystal-armored Monster Emperor. But now, just a random move from Jian Wushuang had almost caused them to surrender. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor. You just said you would give me 3 moves. Are you sure you want to do that? Chapter 580. A Battle with Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor. Are you sure? Jian Wushuang stood in the air with his sword in hand and a surging sword essence as his cold voice echoed throughout the area. Upon hearing this, Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor's face darkened. He had indeed looked down on Jian Wushuang before. But now he had to be more cautious as Jian Wushuang had proven his strength with a single move. Sword Emperor, I admit that I underestimated your strength just now. Even though you're merely in the Cloud Realm, you're even stronger than the Temple Masters in your camp. Since that's the case, I'll go all out to battle with you out of respect. As soon as he finished his words, Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor suddenly shook his body. A vast aura immediately swept around and bright purple light surrounded him, gradually condensing into an amethyst armor made of ferocious scales that covered his body and hands. He raised his right hand and clenched his fist. An explosive force burst out and his aura soared as well. I will attack now. The crowd of experts from the human camp held their breath as they watched. Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor was one of the 3 Monster Emperors, an overlord, among the monster population, and the supreme expert who was at the peak of the whole ancient world. What was his real strength? Could Jian Wushuang really battle with Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor? Unconsciously, these human experts had become excited and were full of expectations for this battle among experts at the peak. Go ahead. I hope you won't disappoint me, Jian Wushuang smiled lightly. After entering the 9-Cloud Realm, his spiritual power, physical strength, and origin power had been enhanced to a terrifying extent. He was definitely qualified to battle with Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor now. He even had the possibility of winning. Whoosh! The crowd heard a sudden burst of air explode in the air, then they noticed that Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor had already disappeared from where he was standing before. They could only see a purple flowing light moving through the sky at an incredible speed. The next moment, a strong wind with an incredibly suppressive force approached Jian Wushuang head-on, causing his eyes to narrow unconsciously. Boom! With a boom, the Hu area began to shake violently. A ferocious palm covered with amethyst scales suddenly blasted through the space in front of Jian Wushuang while turning into a claw. It had transformed into a beast claw, scratching towards Jian Wushuang fiercely. It almost seemed to tear the space in front of him apart. Swoosh! The air was split by this claw. Jian Wushuang stood up in the sky with a smile on his face, sensing the incredible power of this claw. He swung the heart-killing sword lightly and then thrust out. A gorgeous sword move. The moment he swung the sword, the whole area became dark, just like the night sky. The sword shadow became the only light in this night sky, making it extremely gorgeous. But an overwhelming killing intent was hiding behind this gorgeous light. The 7th move of the heart-killing sword technique. It was named Star River. As soon as Jian Wushuang began to comprehend the Slaughter Dao, he also mastered more of the heart-killing sword technique, moves which had been extremely enigmatic before. He had mastered the 5th and the 6th move. He had also comprehended the 7th move, but it was too difficult for him to use at the time. However, after his breakthrough, it became much easier to use. The crowd looked at the spot attentively. In the center of that area, the heaven-tearing claw landed directly on the gorgeous yet deadly sword shadow. The collision did not create the violent explosion that everyone imagined. Instead, the crowd only heard a ridiculously loud impact and a squeezing sound. At the same time, Boom! 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 The aftershocks of the collision swept out in all directions, crushing the surrounding trees, flowers, and gravel into dust. This time, the demonic beasts were smarter and retreated far away so that they would not be affected by the aftershocks. In the core area of the battle, crystal-armored Monster Emperor remained with a cold expression on his face, but a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Whoosh! A purple flowing light burst out and appeared on the other side of Jian Wushuang. A competition of speed. With a faint smile, Jian Wushuang turned into a residual shadow. Whoosh! 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 The figures of Jian Wushuang and crystal-armored Monster Emperor flashed through the sky while releasing mighty attacks each time, dazzling the human experts and demonic beasts that were watching them. Violent explosions could be heard echoing throughout the area from time to time. This matchless and fierce battle was being perfectly displayed in front of everyone. On the battlefield, Jian Wushuang and crystal-armored Monster Emperor were fighting fiercely, competing in speed, offensive power, and even various reaction abilities. But the two sides remained even after the fierce battle. Neither of them was able to obtain an advantage over the other side. The human experts were in a daze. Even the temple masters were watching attentively with their eyes wide open. Too strong. Even though I'm a temple master, I don't think I would be able to compete with them. No wonder crystal-armored Monster Emperor is one of the 3 Monster Emperors. His strength is too terrifying. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor is indeed strong, but why is Sword Emperor also so strong? How can Sword Emperor, a Cloud Realm expert, compete with crystal-armored Monster Emperor? Sword Emperor is able to fight crystal-armored Monster Emperor to a draw. Monster, he is definitely a monster. They all sighed because it was so incredible. Temple Master Iceberg, who hated Jian Wushuang, was also watching the battle. When he saw that Jian Wushuang had not lost after battling with crystal-armored Monster Emperor for such a long period of time, an unprecedented shock emerged in his eyes. How is this possible? It's impossible. Temple Master Iceberg could not believe what he was seeing. When those monster spies tried to assassinate Jian Wushuang, the Monster King had easily defeated Jian Wushuang and almost killed him. That happened only a few days ago. But now, Jian Wushuang was able to fight crystal-armored Monster Emperor to a draw. Wasn't this level of improvement too horrifying? It's true that he broke through from the Saint Realm to the Cloud Realm. However, even if he jumped directly to the 9-Cloud Realm, he would not be this strong. Temple Master Iceberg stared at Jian Wushuang while the word monster struck him.